Hello, Julie here and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to run through all of my Christmas cards that I've created for this year. Each set of 3, because I generally make them in 3s, has its own video, and I will put a link in the description box below to those videos. So if you wanted to see how a card was made, you can pop back there and check it out. So these first 3 cards are, the video for these 3 is called 3 Mauve Christmas Cards. I have created my own envelopes mostly for my cards because they are all square cards. Some of them are 5 1/4 inches and some of them are 5 inches. So this purple cardstock was plain purple. I used a stencil and some glitter paste to create the stripes. The circle is a die and the bauble is a die, and the background is just a plain circle, and the greeting is also a die cut. And you can see that I've got just a bit of a sprinkling of sequins there, silver sequins to go with it. On the inside I've got an offcut of this and a bit of the same purple or mauve paper there, and just a stamp. This one is, this is one of my favourite Christmas dies, the 3 Christmas trees. I bought that on like one of the crafty buy, swap and sell pages, so I don't know what brand it is, but it's worth hunting up, I think, if you're interested, because it is a really good size for cards, and you get the 3 in the one set, so very good. So I've layered my background. The actual card base is white, then I've got some layered paper here. I've die cut this from some white cardstock that I have used the same technique as this background on, but I did it on white, and use that to die cut. A bit of silver ribbon and a sentiment on the inside, a couple of strips of pattern paper, and the wishing you were here, wishing you a very Merry Christmas. That's a stamp. So that's number 2. Number 3, once again, a white card base. I create my own card bases 99.9% of the time, and I use a smooth white cardstock for that. About anywhere between 240 and 300 GSM. So layered distressed papers here, bit of silver ribbon, and this glitter came on the pattern paper already. I didn't do that. I've used a poinsettia die to cut from silver paper, and you might be able to see that I've added a few clear sequins to this one as well. The sentiment is popped up on some foam tape, and on the inside I've just layered up I think that's a rub-on, Craft rub-on, and I've just layered that onto a couple of pieces of cardstock and then done a scribbly border around the outside. So these next 3 cards are from the video called Christmas 3 Navy and Gold Christmas cards. So these were purple and silver, these are navy and gold. These papers are a Craft range, and once again I've distressed the edges. I've used a gold cardstock. It's actually a matte gold cardstock or pearlized gold cardstock. These little greetings came from, I think they're from a Uniquely Creative sheet that I bought. Looking at that, it doesn't look that straight now that I'm looking at it. This is a little chipboard star, and this is a little bow that I created using a die. I think it's a Craft die too. So, and then on the inside I've just put a strip of pattern paper and stamped a couple of Christmas trees. Plenty of room there for my handwritten message. This card is a trifold card, and it opens like that. This is a pattern paper that I've cut all of these Christmas trees out of, and I've used my stickles or Kinderglitz or whatever it's called to add the gold little highlights to the trees. I have also put trees on the back of the ones that were here, because when you close your card, of course, you can see the backs of them. I've got a little piece of grey cardstock here for my for my greeting. This one here, once again, it's the same paper range, a Kaiser Craft. I've used some of the pattern paper to stamp and heat emboss a poinsettia. I've used some of the gold stickles or kinderglicks, whatever it is, and I've put a piece of fine mesh behind that just to give a little bit of texture, and I've used a 3D embossing folder on this piece of grey cardstock here. You might be able to see the great detail that you get with that. I really like the 3D embossing folders. I'd like to get some more, but I want square ones instead of the rectangular ones because most of my cards are square. On the inside I've just stamped the same poinsettia. I haven't heat embossed that, that's just flat, and a little sentiment. Okay, the next three are three cards with Christmas trees on them. So this, I can't remember what paper range this is, but I used a Kaiser stencil to create the Christmas tree. I put some texture paste through that, and then I added some clear glitter, and I wasn't too happy with that, so I ended up going over it with some gold stickle type of thing. On the inside I've got a stamp and just a little strip of pattern paper, the same pattern paper, just for a bit of interest, and the sentiment is propped up on a piece of craft foam. This one here uses my favourite die once again, so I've just die cut the Christmas trees from white and then stuck them onto the gold mirror card, and then fussy cut around the edge, which is very easy because it's a pretty simple shape. This white panel here once again was embossed using a 3D embossing folder. Sentiment, I can't remember where that sentiment came from, but it will say in the video. Yeah, so a bit of ribbon, pretty simple, straightforward, but quite elegant looking. And then I've got my stamp on the inside. Some cards have something on the inside, some of them don't have anything at all on the inside. So this one here, to make my Christmas tree for this one, I just cut strips of pattern paper, and yeah. So, and then I've layered some pattern paper here behind it with a gold in between it, so that it separated the two, because I've used two different types of red there. Now this frame is a chipboard frame that was sitting on my desk for months, and I thought, right, I'm going to use that, so I've given it a coat of white. I think I used acrylic paint, I'm not sure. And this panel, when I assembled it all together, that was originally white, and it looked too much the same. So I've used some Pearl watercolours to colour the background of that. Then on the inside I've just got a layer of the gold mirror card and then a piece of the pattern paper. Now the next three are, these three all use the Uniquely Creative's Holly Jolly Christmas papers. So this, the background of that is heat embossed, so that's a stamp that I've heat embossed with gold embossing powder. I've got this die to cut the Christmas tree out of the pattern paper. Then, as you can see, I've added some gold stickles, or I think it's actually pops of colour or something like that, and so that they can be baubles, and they actually give the card a bit of texture. And the sentiment, once again, is from the Uniquely Creative pack that I purchased, and the gold mirror card for the star and the pot. On the inside I've just put a piece of this background card that I had left over when I trimmed this down to size, and put that on there, and then a Christmas stamp. This one, I've fussy cut a lot of these poinsettias and layered them on top of the pattern paper. Now the pattern paper was originally a wreath, and I've trimmed that down to size and then layered these on the top so that they're There's a nice bit of texture on this card. The bauble there is a die that I have. I think it's memory box die, and I've cut that out of some gold cardstock that is sticky on the back. So yep, a little bit of gold twine there. And this greeting was actually the barcode strip on one of the pattern papers. And on the inside I've just put the Christmas stamp. This one here, these circles came from the Creative Cuts pack. I used my die to cut the scallop circles to go behind them. I just used a piece of pattern paper and then some white cardstock, brads, and this sentiment was in the pack, this same Creative Cuts pack. And once again I've added a couple of clear sequins there just for a little bit of sparkle, and just the stamp on the inside. Right, next I made 3 cards using tulle. Now I had a trip to Whyalla and visited my mother, and she gave me a whole heap of tulle and braids, so I thought I'd use those while the iron's hot. So this one's pretty straightforward. I've got 2 strips of mirror card there. I've got a white panel here that I've completely covered with the tulle, and then I've cut 2 of those same dies that I've used previously, the baubles, but I decided to leave the infill pieces in these 2 because it made them more solid and easier, you know, not so hard to see on the net, and also helped to attach the whole thing. Being on net is pretty hard to stick to. You have to use liquid glue, and I tend to use art glitter glue, which works pretty well. On the inside I've just got the stamp. This one here is just a white panel that I've covered with a bright pink tulle. I've cut this stamped and heat embossed with gold onto pattern paper, the poinsettia. Put some of the pops of colour in the centre, and this was a sentiment, or you know, just a little cut apart in the paper pad, so I've cut that out to use that as my sentiment, and added a few scattered gold sequins. On the inside I just have a stamp. This one here, this piece here is pattern paper, and I've completely covered that with like a silvery sort of mesh, and I've used the same mesh to tie a little bow there. And this is a piece of the braid, some of the braid that she gave me, and I've put some more mesh through that as a little tie. I have mounted that, you might not be able to see it, but I've mounted that on a piece of scrap chipboard, so that is up a little bit higher. And on the inside I just have my stamp once again. Now these 3 are all vintage style. So I've used, I think this is a Bo Bunny paper range called Father Christmas, and it's from 2011, so I've had it in my stash for a very, very long time. I've distressed the edges of all of my layers, and I've layered a pattern paper cardstock, and so on. This is one of the cut aparts from the pad, and I've just put a piece of tulle between that piece and the cardstock, plain cardstock that it's spattered on. This tulle actually came wrapped around a bunch of flowers, so I've got yards of it actually, heaps and heaps of it. On the inside I heat embossed a Christmas tree, and then added some of the Nouveau drops to it, and just matted. This came from, I think that was a Uniquely Creative cut apart sheet, and I've just matted that onto a piece of the paper, pattern paper. This one here, once again layered up, gold in between each pattern paper, all the edges distressed. The Christmas tree is a stencil that I put Deco transfer gel through, and then let that dry, and then added gold foil to it just by laying the gold foil on and running over it with my brayer. This layer here is mounted onto chipboard. I use chipboard scraps for my mounting mostly, but sometimes I do use craft foam. And in the inside I've just added a piece of pattern paper and heat embossed a greeting. This one the lace and the poinsettias for this one came from my mum as well. So once again, layered up pattern papers. There's nothing between these. I've tried to go from a darker to a lighter to make them separate. Distress the edges. There's a piece of scrap chipboard between this layer and the lace, so that makes that sit up a little bit. And these poinsettias were given to me by my mum. On the inside I've got a layered pattern paper there and a heat embossed sentiment. Now these are the last three that I've created, and these are called Christmas cards using alcohol ink on acetate. So what I did was I created an A4 sheet of acetate with alcohol inks on it, and then I've used that to embellish my cards. So this is the star is, I think, the Craft die, and I've just cut a couple from the sticky back gold cardstock that I have, stuck them onto the acetate and then cut around them with my scissors. I cut a strip there that's about 1 inch wide and a piece of the gold paper that's, I think it's 3/8 of an inch wide. I've used a marker to draw my strings. This is from Uniquely Creative once again. It's mounted on a piece of scrap chipboard, and yeah, so the actual cardstock is white. There's nothing inside of these. So I've mounted that onto the same paper that I've used there. This was done in the same way, so I've used my Christmas tree die with the gold adhesive backed card, stuck it onto the acetate sheet and trimmed around it. I've then created a panel that was big enough to take my trees, added a gold strip to the top and bottom of that, and then layered some pattern papers behind it. These papers are from Paper Rose, I think. I got them last year, and these you can foil these. These are like the laser prints, so you can foil on top of those sheets. That's something I might try next year because I've finished for this year. So that's that one. And this one, you add some strips of the coloured acetate onto a scrap piece of clear acetate, and then run it through my die cutter with a circle die. Then I used a slightly larger circle die to cut the gold cardstock. I layered the acetate onto the gold cardstock, hand cut this little top for my bauble, piece of black crochet cotton and another sentiment from Uniquely Creative pack, but I matted that on this same paper that I used here. And I've got one more card that I created a couple of years ago, and I gave it to my husband for Christmas with his Christmas gift, and he didn't want me to throw it out, so I cut the back section off that I'd written on, and I've cut a new piece of red cardstock and attached it here, and so now I've got a brand new card. This was actually one of my favourite cards from a couple of years ago. So there's another idea. So I hope you've enjoyed watching my video. You probably won't be seeing any more Christmas card videos from me this year, so hopefully I'll be back soon with either probably a scrapbooking page or a art journal page. So thank you for being here, and I hope you can join me for my next video.